Alright, so assignment il numero due. What we're going to be doing is a title sequence. So we're emulating it off of like the Gotham title sequence, but there's plenty of other shows who kind of use the same kind of title sequence. The reason I chose the Gotham one is because it's the most interesting, and we have the most ability to play. So by the time we're done with this, we will actually be creating the text here in 3D, and then all of the background elements we will gather inside of After Effects and put this thing together. Okay, so the text here is the only thing that's going to be 3D. The rest of this is just going to be pictures that we put together in After Effects with the 3D to make it kind of complete. Alright, so if you need to, you can go to YouTube, and then play it, obviously. And you can see what's happening here. Okay, so the text comes out. You can see it's pretty close to being full size on the screen. Some of the important things, we have this big white spotlight going across. We also have the police, red and blue, kind of flashing on the other side. Okay, so we're going to try to create that look to it. Alright, so our first step on this journey is to go into cinema, obviously. So what we're going to do is, we have our file here. I'm just going to go to save it, save as, and I'm going to put this inside of my Sarcona title, and I'm actually going to make a new one just so I have a clean one. It's my tester one to mess it up. Class. Okay, Sarcona underscore title underscore 01. Okay, save it in increments. That way we have multiple versions of this. All right. Notice how we have preferences here too. Like right when you create a new project, you get preferences, and it's a good way to kind of go through if you want to put your author name. That way you know who created it. Here's some other things you could turn on and use, and whatever. We'll get to some of these later on. Some of these are a bit more advanced. Okay. Especially loading presets, saving presets. So if you're constantly using something, you can always go back. Like if you wanted your max time to always be like 240, you could set it right there. That way it's reset here, and then every time you come in, you could just load those presets, and it'll automatically load that you're using 240 frames per second. Alrighty. So we need to create the text. So under create, there's a lot of stuff that's inside here. Okay. And the way that text gets created is, you may think go under object and there's text in here, but there is no text inside here. Okay, we have to go to spline, and in spline there's a text. So I'm going to click on that, and it's thinking. There it is. So there's our text. Okay, now you'll see that it's see-through. The spline text. It's just curves, okay, or splines is what they call them, which basically means that you can see right through them. So let's go and set some properties first before we get any further into it. So I want the word Gotham in here, okay. Oops. And when I click inside my view, it'll change to Gotham. Now they didn't have lowercase Gotham, right? They had all uppercase. So again, I want to go through and make sure I'm using this the way they used it. Alright. What else? We can pick a font. So right now I'm on Tahoma. So I could click and hold and find something that's more Gotham-y. Maybe Minion Pro. That looks cool. That looks neat. Let's see. Horizontal spacing. That's going to help, because there was some spacing in between each letter. Don't show any typers any designers they'll freak out. Our kerning is way off. Also, my alignment I'll set to middle so that I'm actually centered on the screen. I could also take the plane and change it. I don't need to, but I could. These intermediate points, it's kind of hard to see. Let me turn the points on. There we go. How to zoom in on some of these areas here so we can see it. So the intermediate points are like these corners here. So if I go to none, you'll see it's just blocky. If I change this to natural, it smooths it out. Change it to uniform. It tries to keep an even flow between all the points. If I keep it adaptive, it's going to add more points here than it would there. And if I change this to subdivided, it'll do that. Okay. So your goal here is just to find something that's going to look good. Okay. If I take this to uniform and I crank it up, I'll get a lot of divisions and I'll have these little corners that are broken. If I change it to adaptive, the corners are actually pretty crisp. Okay, look right there. If I change it to subdivided, we don't really see a huge difference there. And you can see how I can play with these settings just to adjust some of the properties of it. Okay, so depending on what font you've chosen, depending on what your letters are, you may have to come in here and play with this. I don't think I want to go to uniform just because of what it's going to do there. I think just adaptive or natural seems to be the best fit for this. Okay, but I also want to look through all my letters and just make sure there's nothing kind of funky hanging out. Sometimes you'll get like a point that just kind of like goes off, or the G doesn't look nice, or whatever. Okay, so now that we have our word here, there's even a thing for kerning. Look at all that fancy stuff, right? Now that we have our word here, what we want to do is take this word and actually make it into a shape that we can see. So under our tools here, there's a whole bunch of, there's 6 right now, a whole bunch of different things that we can do to add to it, okay, or to take a curve and make it into something. That's what these ones are. So if I go to extrude, okay, there's my extrude. There's nothing inside it, just like our subdivision. There's nothing inside it, so it doesn't know what to do. So we drag the test into extrude, and now it'll extrude the text. It'll actually give it depth. Okay, so now we have depth. We can change the height. Ooh. Okay, that was our text. Oops, sorry. We can go to extrude. There we go. And we can change the movement. There it is. So that changes the depth of it. We can change the subdivisions, which really isn't going to do anything right now because it's just straight across. And then for these ISO subdivisions, really we're not going to see a huge difference too, just because of the shape that we're doing. Okay. We also have caps. So the caps are the front pieces. This right here, from this to this, that's your extrude. This, the front of the A and the back of the A, is your cap. So right now it's just set to cap. If I change it to fillet, you'll see that we get a fillet but no cap. If I change it to fillet cap, I get a fillet and I get a cap. Okay, now that's the front. You'll see that the back is square. If I change the back to a fillet cap also, I'll get a fillet cap back there too. I also have the type. So right now it's convex. Okay, which really isn't showing us anything. If I take these steps up though, so I take the steps up, okay, you'll see that now we're getting this nice rounding happening here. Okay, so if I change it from convex to linear, it's just going to go straight. If I change it to convex, it goes round. Concave, it goes rounded inward. Half circle does that. And then one step is like this, and then 2-step is like that. It might help if I go to display and I turn on my lines so you can see it. And then engraved does that. Okay, so the best one for the Gotham logo would be this convex one. That seems to be the closest one. Now, the radius here seems a bit big, so I'm going to take this radius down, good boy. Now you can also use your middle mouse, like if I just scroll, you can see how it changes it. And I can also use the arrows. So if I just move this arrow up and down, you see how it changes it. Or I could just simply type it in. So 0.2, 0.4 seems to be good. So I'm going to set 0.4 to the back also. Okay. The idea is that we want to be able to see just a tiny bit of rounding happening there. Let's just try 0.6, just because we're a little bit further away. Let me turn my display back to regular. Alright, that should be good. 0.6 in this case is going to be good because I can see it. It's going to make sense. Okay. Awesome. Alright, so what else do we got here? So we got hull inwards. So you can see what this is doing just looking at these inner pieces. It, like, instead of going out, it goes in. So in this case, it doesn't really make sense. Why would we even do that? Hole inwards. So let's go to where, like, the A is. Okay, so you can see how that can go this way or that way. Again, it looks best with the default settings so far. There's also constrain. And what constrain does is it locks it into the original text size. When we do without the constraint, it gets a little bit chunkier. Okay. Now, if you look close to these corners here, watch what happens when I turn the constraint off. We actually get this weird like overlap. Okay. Turn it on, don't get the overlap. That's what we want. We can do creating a single object, meaning that all the pieces will be one single object as opposed to multiple objects. Oh, what happened to the M? My poor baby. Zoom in. Something happened there. Sometimes just clicking these on and off will correct it, and sometimes not, apparently in this case. Let me go back to my text here, and instead of this being Minion Pro regular, let me make it bold. And if I go back to my extrude and set this to constrain, that seems to have fixed that part. Okay. Now sometimes you will get some weird glitches when you are working with this. Okay, so you can see the A looks like it's cut a hole here and here. So I'm going to hit Control R and verify, yes, that is definitely cut. Same thing here with the H. Okay, so I want to check and see why it's doing that. So sometimes it can be as simple as just changing this down here. So right now we're on n-gons, which means if I switch my display to lines, it's like cutting it up. If I switch this to quads, come on, make it regular grid. Wow, it really doesn't like whatever I've done here. Let me make sure I have enough. Oops. Yeah, none of these are a problem. There's more subdivisions on my caps. No. Sometimes it's just something silly in how it's creating it. It really doesn't want that constraint on. Okay. So in this case, that constraint is not doing me any favors. Yeah, it's just acting weird. Well, it's be something to investigate for sure. But if you can keep the constraint on, keep the constraint on. Okay. Even with these tiny little marks here that we see, you know, when it renders, you don't really see them too much. Okay. So that should be good. Like that. Okay. So I have my constraint off. In this case, my hull inwards is still on. So all my defaults are still here. I did set this one. So here's n-gons. So you can see what n-gons looks like. And basically the extrude has a bunch of divisions, but the front face doesn't have any divisions at all. If I set this to a quad, what it does is it tries to break it up and actually flow around it. Okay, so I prefer using quads in this case because I want to have something on the front of this because it just makes me happier. And it looks better if you needed to smooth it or something. There's no way that a n-gon would smooth nice. We could also try triangles, but triangles are going to give us, you know, pretty much messy stuff too. There's no like happy solution when we have this kind of stuff. All right. So there is our text. Now, what would happen if, let's say, we saved our file and we brought this file home? Okay. If we don't have this font, Minion Pro Bold, the text won't show up. It'll say you don't have the text or the font or whatever, and it'll just basically crap out on you. So we have to make sure that we have the fonts loaded that we're going to be using. There we go. I'm just adjusting my number of points here. So if I don't have Minion Pro, like I said, it won't show up. So that could obviously be an issue later on. So what I want to do is I want to basically lock this in, so it doesn't matter which computer I go to, I can still work on this. Okay, so I'm going to hold Control and drag the Extrude, and that makes me a copy. Okay, so this one I'm going to hide. So I just click on the top dot, and now it's gone. If I go to this one and move it, you see I only have one there. If I turn the dot off and move it, you'll see that I have two. I want to turn that top dot off. Okay. So now I'm going to take this bottom one, I'm just going to rename it. Okay. So if I click on it and hit enter, I can type in flattened, Gotham. I don't need flattened, I can put Gotham. Then I'm just going to hit C. So remember, C is our make editable. So now that this is editable, it's broken it up into pieces, actual pieces of geometry, as opposed to text, which has been extruded. So now we have points to it. Okay. And we have all this other stuff. So there's our text. Now we can't edit the text anymore from here. Like I can't go in before like I could and change stuff. On the other one, let me hide this one. On this one, I could always go back to the text and type in a new word. And it'll automatically update everything I've done. Okay. But on this one, it won't do that. Alright, so now we can go back and forth without having to worry about this thing doing something stupid. Alright, so I can turn my object back on and not the points this time. I can turn my grand shading on. Alright. Now, just to annoy you further, if I scoot this over like this, you'll see that Gotham is really just got ham. Got ham? Got milk? Alright, so now we need to texture this. So I'm going to double click down here. I'm going to, I want to bring in a texture, okay? So now what I want to do is, when I click this, it's going to go to my previous folder, because I told Cinema already, like this is my work folder. So I want to set that up for my new one. So I'm going to go to my preferences here. So under Edit Preferences, and then under Files, under your texture paths, you can create a texture path. So in this case, I'm going to go to my work folder for 2510, and then go to my title folder. Okay, and then I hit close, and then oops, that's not it. So inside of here, I'm going to make a new folder called TEX. And what Cinema is going to do is it's going to recognize the project I'm working on. It's going to recognize I have this text folder, and it'll allow me to grab textures from there. So I'm just going to grab, here's all the textures I had in my previous one. I only used one of them or two of them. But I'm just going to paste them inside there. And the nice thing about this is if you're working on a bigger project, you could just have a textures folder that you have kind of centralized on your computer that you always dip from. This way we're kind of, because of how we're working, we're copying the textures into this specific spot. So now we click on this button. It's going to go into my other folder here, and I'm going to find a texture. So I want to find something along the same lines as the Batman one, the Gotham one. So I basically have these metal textures, large, extra large icons. So something like this looks pretty good, or something like that. I like this one just because of the contrast and the different colors. Okay, that one could look cool too if it's a little rusty. Okay, definitely not any of those, not any of those. Definitely not the woods. Alright, so I'm going to go with that metal texture I showed up yonder, right there. Okay, so the same thing, I went to textures.com, found a cool one, downloaded it, good to go. Alright, so now if I drop this onto here, what's going to happen is it's going to apply it to every single one of these pieces. And then I have to go to each one of these pieces and change stuff. I don't want to do that. If I click on just the word Gotham and I drag just this onto the word Gotham, because this is the parent, is the main group guy of all of these, you'll see that it assigns it to all of them. And now if I just click on this and change my UVW mapping to cubic, it automatically lays it out on every piece perfectly. Okay? Now, when I said perfectly, I just mean that we can see it. I didn't mean it's actually perfect. So this is kind of what we talked about before with tileable textures. So the texture on the bottom and the texture on the top are different enough that we see this difference. So if I go to Photoshop, I'm going to open up this texture in Photoshop, and I'm going to clean it up so that I can use this as a tileable texture. So in Photoshop, I'm going to find that texture. I believe it's that one. And if we just look at this, you can see up here, this is definitely darker than it is down there. This is darker than this. That's kind of like in the mid between the two. So I'm going to go to Filter, Other, Offset. I'm just going to scroll this until I can see the line. There's the line. Go the other way. There's the line. I'm trying to center it better. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my clone stamp on a large setting. I got my opacity down. I'm just using my mouse. And I'm just going to basically clone stamp out the problems. Okay. So I'm going to stay away from the edges right now because I just want to basically erase this line. So just a little clone stamp action. Photoshop's kind of like math, where you think, I'm never going to use this again, until you've gotten into any other class, and then you realize, holy cow, I'm using this all the time. Okay, so I'm just going through removing some of these identifiers. So things that look the same, this, and this. These are all like the same kind of dot. I want to overwrite that. Okay, so I'm going to go in with a little harder brush now. A little bit more opaque. There we go. Okay, so now, it may not be pretty, but it definitely is a repeatable texture now. Okay, now I can't just do stuff like that because there's a line right there and I have to blend it in. So just be aware that you can't just clone everything out and expect it to look good after that. The texture still has to work. Okay, like I'm getting repeats right there, so I'm going to undo that blob. There we go. Okay, so now if I go back to my filter, I go to Other, I go to Offset. The idea is as I scroll sideways and up and down, I don't see any real line. Okay, there might be a tiny line right here. I can just, oops. Take the opacity down some more. There we go. Just to brush that out. Same thing here. There's a little bit right there. Alright. Now you could also stack stuff inside here. So if I just go to my open, and then I saw like this one. Okay, so it's kind of like a metal-y texture. I can copy that and drop that in here. Hit the right buttons, Sean. There. And then change this to, you know, let's say multiply, color burn. I think the color burn was probably the best one there. Ooh, look how grungy it is. And I'm going to take the opacity down in it. Now, me doing that, my offset isn't going to work anymore. Okay, so I have to basically erase the edges of this one. So if I just put a layer mask on this, and I just paint the opacity down, paint the edges black, so I just have some more detail in the center of this. Then I have it. Now this pattern will be repeated over and over again, but the idea is that we shouldn't really notice it too much. So I'm going to save this as a targa. Metal for text. Alright, so now let's go back to Cinema, and let's go to our material. Let's click on this, click on the dots, and then in our texture folder, metal for text. Sort it by the date, it's easier to find. There it is. So you see, just by doing that, I've eliminated that seam. Okay, and then what I can also do is if I click on the icon up here, I could then take my tiles and repeat this. So I add more tiles, and what that's going to do is it's going to make our texture appear finer, right? So if I made 10 tiles by 10 tiles here, that's probably too much. 5 by 5, it's better. It'll appear that our texture has a lot more depth to it because we can really get inside there. I'm just going to go maybe 3.5 by 3.5. There we go. Okay. So we want to have a lot of detail to this, and that's what's really going to help us be able to do that. Alright, now I also want this to be bumped, so I'm going to go back to my material. Go back to basic, let's give this a name. Gotham material. We want this to have a bump, so I'm going to go to the bump. And remember, I want to do that copy paste trick. Okay, so let me jump to color real quick. I will copy that channel, go to texture and paste that channel. And if we crank this up, we can definitely see some kind of pitting inside here. Okay, looks really cool. Alright, I'm also going to go to reflectance. Now there's two ways. There's a layer setup here where we could add different materials and stuff. Just to keep it simple for now, we're going to just do default. Okay, and what this is going to allow us to do is just use sliders to adjust what this is looking like. So if you wanted something that looks sharp and crisp, this width is going to be narrower. Okay, so your reflection is going to be really sharp. Alright, if it's like that, it's going to be really spread out. So if this is a metal, this is going to be definitely narrower down. And then the fall off is just kind of how it's tapering off. So again, if it's like that, it's going to be really crisp. It's like this, it's going to be a little bit softer. So this one I'm going to go kind of like halfway. Then I can also control like the inner width, specular strength, so how bright it is. Okay, let's hit Control R and see what that's looking like. Yep, that's alright. Let's see what else. Let's go to reflectance. Okay, and this is a different way that we can adjust this. So this is controlling the reflection of this, which controls the specular properties. Okay, so this is actually, excuse me, actually reflecting items out in space. Now we don't have anything out in space, so it's not really anything it can reflect. All right, so if I go in here and I just make a, let's say a plane, and just for the sake of this, I'm just going to give this a color. Okay, so now you can see, it's kind of hard to see, let me get closer. Now you can see a little bit of that red is actually bleeding into this, so there's a little bit of reflection happening in there. Okay, so that's where that's coming from. Delete that, delete this, there we go. Alright, so back to this thing. Okay, so there's different ways that we can control a lot of these properties. I changed it to GGX. We're still getting pretty much the same results. I liked the anisotropic is cool too because it kind of spreads out the stuff a little bit better. For now, we're just going to stick with these basic ones, and then we'll build up to other ones. So I like the specular. I'm sorry, not the specular, the reflectance one. Okay, we just need to adjust some of these properties. So let's see. So if we make this a dielectric, it'll just reflect a little bit differently than just a standard reflection. Now we're not really getting a whole lot of detail in here because we don't have a lot of stuff in our scene. Okay, like we don't have a light in our scene. I may swap those around. Okay, so just for now, we got a color on there, we got a bump, and we got some sort of reflection on here we can adjust later. So the next thing I want to do is add my lights in. So when we're looking at the Gotham intro, if you watch over here on the right side, we have these like police flashing lights. Okay, and have you ever seen a police light? Actually, just go to Google. Let's see, police light. Alright, so here's a good example. This is, it's annoying definitely, but you'll see that they are different kinds of flashes. So, like both red and blue are in sync. In this case, they're like doing a double flash. This one they're doing alternating flashing. This one they're doing single flashing back and forth. Holy cow, it's annoying. Alright, so we want to create some sort of pattern like that inside of Cinema. So we're going to create, we're going to create a, let's do an IES light. Okay. So an IES light wants an IES profile. So you can go to Google and type in IES profile lights and download. There we go. So Derek Jensen has this link here, and if you go to this download file, you'll get all the download profiles. So what this does is it creates light patterns that are not flat lights. Like one of the things about CG that's kind of like sucky is that everything is pretty much nice and smooth. So these, they give you this breakup of different light patterns that we can use. Okay, so grab one of those. Okay, download that thing, drop the IES profiles into your textures folder, and then I'm just going to grab one of these, like scatter light. Okay, and what it does is it creates a nice little pattern on here. I can just move the light. Okay, now on the Gotham one, it was kind of off to the side, so we'll put it off to the side. pull it back a little bit. There we go. And we click the light. Just so you can see, let's create a box right in front of this. Okay, and then we'll hit Control R. You can see that we don't get a flat light pattern. If I were just to create a standard light here, and I'll turn off my other light, you'll see it's just a smooth coloration here, and that's, you know, it's all right. But I want to have a little bit of detail to this. That looks neat how that light's hitting. Okay, so I used which one did I use? Scatter light. Okay, and then here's a picture of the scatter light. So if I go to photometric, there's a scatter light. Here it is. I can adjust the intensity of it too. So it looks cool the way it is. And then it also has a direction. So if I rotate it, I can hit different parts of the light on the surface. So the way that it was set up like that was already pretty good. All right. So then what I want to do is I want to control or color the light. So let's go in here and color this. So I'll color it red. There it is. Maybe I'll take the intensity down some because I don't want to like overpower it. I do want to have a shadow on here, so I'll just do a hard shadow. Hit Control R. Yep, that's a little bit too bright still, so let's take the intensity down some. Go to our let's go to the General tab and just keep pulling it down some more. Okay, now that A is just lit up. Okay, now this is where I want to come back to my material and adjust this. So if I sharpen this up and I take that specular strength down, you can see that the A is not as bright. Okay, because what happens is if this is too bright, the light just washes it out. Okay, so we gotta find like a nice little happy medium like that. That's good. Okay, so now we have the red. So now let's go and scoot him over. I'll hold Control and just drag the blue over. Now what would be nice is if I animate one of these. This is a neat thing about Cinema. If I animate one of these, I could duplicate it and then just pop it over there. Okay, so if I had one of these red and one of these blue, like this, also neat how it shows the color. I don't want red and blue at the same time because then I'm going to get purple and that looks weird. So I want to do the alternating one where it's basically like 2 red and then 2 blue. 2 red, 2 blue, 2 red, 2 blue. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Instead of doing it to the red and then going over and doing it to the blue, I'm going to just delete the blue, do it to the red, and then I can adjust it. Okay. So everything that has a dot can be animated, right? So if I turn off show illumination, oops, not show illumination, or I turn off or turn on no illumination, there we go, you'll see that it doesn't illuminate, it just doesn't do anything, right? So if I go here with it off, and then I go here with it on, that's opposite, right? So, and then I go up a little bit more and turn it off. Let me zoom in here so I can actually see what I'm doing. I go to 6. Okay, so now we have this off, on, off, on, or on, off, on, off. Okay, and what I can do is I can take this animation, come on, there we go. So I hold shift and I'm dragging in the bar here, and I can hit Control C. This took about 6 frames, so if I imagine that the blue will take about 6 frames also, add a couple frames and then paste. Okay, so now I'm at 20. So I'm going to add another 6 frames, and we're at 26. Go up a couple more, 28. Paste it. Okay, so now just to test it out. Alright, so I'm at 34, go up 6 frames, plus another couple, and then paste it. I'm at 48, go up 6 frames, up a couple more, paste it. I'm basically just going up 8 frames. Okay, so I want to do this all the way to about, I'm going to do it about 240. I don't think I need that many, but better to have more, too much than not enough. 77, 85. And it doesn't have to be 100% exact, just kind of close. My last one here is 92, so I'll go up 8, paste it. My last one here is 106, so I'll go 8. Last one here is 121, or 120. So 128, and paste it. 134, 142, paste it. 148, 156. And you get the idea. That should be plenty. We're only going to need about 150 frames, so that should be good. Alright, so I'm going to hold control and just drag this over. Alright, so now I have basically 2 animations on top of each other. So I'm going to hit play. Oops. Play. Okay, both red are coming out at the exact same time. So what I want to do is take this red, which I can just color blue now. I don't know why it came out that color. Maybe the red is influencing it some. There we go. And I want to offset its animation. So under Window, under Timeline Dope Sheet, here is all the animation for that light. So if I click on that, there we go. If I click on this light, okay, you'll see the bar on top. So I can just click and drag this bar. I'm basically just clicking and dragging it over so that there's a bit of overlap between the two. Okay, so you can see where there's a little bit of overlap there, but I want to go right there. There we go. So now it's like these ones, then these ones, then these ones, and that one. Alright, so now if we rewind and play. Okay. So there's our red and blue. Now, oops, where'd you come from? So there's the blue, and there's the red. Now let's say that's going too fast, right? So what I can do is if I open up my dope sheet again, I can highlight all the keys. Okay, and it puts this box around it. All right, so I want to get this closer to that side. There we go. So put this box around it. Now if I click and drag this box, what it's going to do is stretch out the animation. So now I'm going to go to like 260. Alright, I think I probably still need a little bit of space between them. So let me go back to my timeline. Let me marquee. Delete. Don't delete my keys. Alright, now I could go ahead and cut keys. So if I grab this, I can go to Edit, Cut, and that'll cut them out of there. Let's go here. Okay, so what I think I want to do is let's delete light number 1. We can re-add that in there. And I want to do some tweaking to this light. so I'm just going to take this and just scoot these over so we have a little bit more room between each one of these. We'll grab all these. Come on. I'm just doing Control X to just get rid of those. And zooming out, moving, it's all the same as the viewport. So Alt middle, Alt right. So I spread them out a little bit further, just so we can get a better timing here, so it's not as quick. So let's wait a big chunk. So let's wait a few frames here and then turn the blue on. Okay, so we turn, this is about 12 frames, yeah, 12 frames. So if we go up another 12 frames, then go up another 12 frames, so like 36, let's say. And then I can copy these keyframes. Come on. And drag them down. So same way, holding Control, drag the keyframes down. And you can see this way might be a little bit more intuitive for you, because then what I can also do is grab all of these again, hold Control, and then go another chunk. Now if I look here, I can see that the next chunk is about 72. So it's an easy way to kind of do the math for you. So I grab all of these, come on, all of these, hold Control, drag it down, see where, I line it up to the very last one, and then I see where the next one is, and it's about there. So very quickly I've created that. So now we'll just shrink that over there. We'll delete light 1, I'll duplicate light again, I'll color it blue. I'll go back into my dope sheet. And I will take light 1 and just scoot it over. It's kind of in the middle of this. And then we'll look at it again and see. Okay. And again, if we're still not happy with it, we can always come back and tweak things. That's the best part about any of these programs, is our ability to come back and tweak. So, grab all this stuff, and I click and drag this, I'm basically compressing it, so it does go a little bit quicker, because maybe I went a little bit too slow on it. Alright, so let's try that, okay? Now, it's not going to fill the entire thing, so here's where the red is, right? Let's go back to the red. Density is fine. Color transparency, yeah, that's all good. Take the intensity of this thing down to like 59. Alright, so we're still getting some red happening right here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another light here. And this one's going to be a spotlight. So the idea is that you have the red and the blue, and this is like the police are searching for criminals. Aim these up a little bit. The red and the blue are police searching for criminals. Then you have the white light, which is the spotlight, which is like the searchlight. So, you know, just something like that. Okay. So I'm just going to go to my object, or my coordinates, and I'm just going to set some rotational keyframes. So I click and drag at the beginning, click and drag, and start it off there. There you go. Then I'll go to the end, just kind of wipe it across, and then what I like to do is just, that's my starting point. Okay, so it goes like that. Okay, so that's my starting point. So now what I can do is go kind of like halfway and then rotate it the other way. Then go this way and rotate it that way. And I have to make sure every time I set keyframes. I'm used to After Effects in some instances because it automatically does it for you. Alright, so now, oops, I was moving keyframes. Let's hit play. So there it is going across the word and searching here. The idea is that we want it to look like it's actually searching. I think this keyframe there, I'm just going to rotate this down. Alright, that's cool. I think the end one goes a little bit too fast. I'm going to take this keyframe at 150. And I'm in my move tool. Just trying to scoot him over. There he goes. I'm still a little bit too quick there now. So I'm looking for a consistent movement. I don't want it to like speed up all of a sudden like that. Okay, so I'm going to go to the end of this. And I'll just rotate this back. Maybe it lands over here on the M. Okay, remember we're only going to about 150, so we don't need to see all of it. But it's good to kind of overshoot in case we need some extra frames. Alright, so that's good. Alright, so for our animation we'll have this where it swipes across and then comes back. Maybe we're going to have, instead of having it come back all the way, we'll have it stay over here on the GOT. Comes here. And on this keyframe, we'll have it over there. You know, get comfortable playing with this stuff because it's the best way to be able to control what it's doing. Oh, that's good. All right. Now over on the other side of the Batman logo, there was like a flashing white light. So I'm going to go to an area light here. Rotate it over, scale it up. And the idea is that all these lights have to work together. So we can't have one light that's this bright because it makes everything just dimmer and not as impactful. So I'm going to take the intensity down. Not that much. There we go. Alright, let me see what it looks like with that. So now we have the area light, we have the spotlight, and we have some blue. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I think I want to take that spotlight up a bit though. Just a little bit more intensity. There we go. I think I want to take the blue up too. So blue's a little bit darker than the red. Cool. Alright, what else do we want to put on here? Let's see. Shadow for sure. Let's make this a hard shadow. Alright, cool. And then let's just take this intensity here. And instead of it being on this no animation, I'm going to animate the intensity coming up and down. So what we can do is I'm going to go to my light here. And if I highlight down in the bottom, I can then right click, copy those keyframes, go to my other light, and paste those keyframes. Okay. Now this is one doing the no illumination. Okay. So just so you can see, we can go back and do stuff like that where I'm copying from one set and pasting it to another. But like I said, I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this to. Come on, you're off. Reset. Oh, I still have those keyframes there. There we go. Okay, so I deleted those keyframes. No illumination is back off. Okay. Making sure everything's back. Good. Okay. So then what I can do is on this intensity, I can just say here it's at 52. That's going to go down to 0. That's going to come back up to 52. Oops. Forgot to set my 0 keyframe. So it goes 52, 0, 52. And then I like that. So let me go to my dope sheet. It's light 3, light 3. And there's the animation for that one. So I can hold Control and just drag it over. And it's kind of arbitrarily, right? So it doesn't have to be exactly on the marks. There we go. So now it's like super dark. You can see it. Now we can see that. Okay. So that's pretty much the lighting for now. Now, a lot of the stuff we're not going to be able to see fully until we actually render this out. So we want to do a test render on it. So let's set up a camera, then we just do a test. So I'm going to go to my camera. I'm going to make sure my settings are set up first. So I'm going to go to my settings here, 960 by 540. Now I'm not looking in my camera, I'm like outside the camera. There he is. I have to make sure I click the button. Now I'm inside the camera. Now the camera doesn't like to move while you're inside it. Like it can rotate, but it doesn't like to zoom in and out. So click off to deselect it, and then you can set your camera up. So it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little lighter area here, darker area here. Nothing will render outside the dark area. So I want to set up my Gotham so it's right about there, maybe a little bit further in. Okay, and I'm going to click my camera. I'm going to go to my coordinates. Let me set up this focal length first. So I'm going to set this up pretty far, like 70. Then I'm going to zoom out. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to set my coordinate keyframes here. Make sure I wind it. Here and there. Okay, then I'm going to go to the end of this, which is, like I said, about 150. And then I'm going to click my camera off. Oops. Go to my object first for my camera and really take this focal length down to like 10. And then zoom in. Now what that focal length does is it makes the image seem bigger. So like now these letters are going to seem a lot bigger than they did a few minutes ago. And we want to fly right between two of the letters. So right between the H and the T. Like that. Click the camera. And then click back on my coordinates. Now I did this on purpose. If I rewind this, you'll see there's an error. We're really far back. Okay, so I have to make sure that I set my focal length keyframes too. My coordinates is just position, but the focal length is actually the zoom of the camera. So let me go back to 150. I'll set my focal length. I'll rewind to the beginning, and I'll set this to 60. Yeah, I believe I was at 60. Okay, so now when I rewind it and play, Okay, we're going right inside there. Now, one thing that's happening that I'm really not enthused about, or a couple things, I guess. I'm off screen right here, so the M is being cut off, and there's plenty of room on this side, so I want to fix that for sure. The other thing is that it's kind of speeding up, like it's not going one consistent speed. And so what I want this to look like is we were shooting this with a helicopter, and we just kind of picked like a good spot, okay? The helicopter wouldn't just stop in the middle of the air and then gradually pick up speed and then fly in super fast and then stop. Okay, it wouldn't do that. So with the camera selected, I'm going to go to Window and I'm going to go to the Timeline F-curve. And in here, I'm going to grab this curve. Okay, this is my camera's animation, this big thing. And I'm going to... oops. There we go. I'm going to grab all of these, so I have to expand it and grab them all. Zoom out. Marquee everything. There we go. And then I'm going to hit this button. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it linear, meaning that there's not going to be any changes in the speed. It's just going to go one speed. Okay, so that should fix our speed issue. Well, it's still going quick. It's still going a bit quick. Alright, so let's go back to that dope sheet, or the F-curve. And let me make sure all my other ones are still going in the same spot. Yes, these are all going to about 150. My focal length is going to 150. Now, there's also a lot of things that are moving around where they really don't need to be. Okay, so this is where kind of focusing in on what is important and what's moving can really help us out. So let me close that. I'm going to go back to my camera, go back to my coordinates, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to animation, come on, and I'm going to delete the track. Okay, and what that does is delete all the keyframes. Okay, now you'll see it still looks like we're zooming in. That's, I'm saying we're rotating. Let me delete that track too. Right click, animation, delete track. There we go. That's mostly that's all just that focal length. Okay, so I'm going to go to here at the beginning of this. I'm going to center it. Okay, so kind of centering where that is. Cool. And then I'm going to set keyframes for only one of these. So if I click the X, you can see that the X of this is just going to move it left and right. The Y moves it up and down. Not too far over there. And then the Z is what's going to push it in or pull it out. So that's the only one I need. So I'm going to set this up about there. Set a Z keyframe. Go to the end. And then just crank the Z right into that area. Okay, now it looked like we zoomed out a bit, because we did. We zoomed out a bit and then zoomed in. That's just because of the curve. So if I go to my F curve, grab the points, make it linear, we should be in better shape. Nope, we're still kind of zooming out a bit more. So I'm going to go to the camera. Let me go to my focal length, F curve. And I'm just going to move this keyframe up, meaning over. Okay, so what should happen is we're getting, as we get closer to it, then we start zooming in. We go here. something I forgot to do. So my one animation ends too far. I gotta make sure they end at the same time. Okay, so both of these start at the same time, so the focal length and the position start at the same time, and they both end at the same time. So just because I had one of them off, it was throwing it off. Cool. Now let's go back to the camera. And I need to just center it better because here I'm hitting more of the bottom of the H. I want to really get to the middle of this. So I'm going to go to 150. I'll go to my coordinates. And then pulse back a little bit. Like that. I'll set keyframes for all three. Go back to the beginning. And let's see how we're at. Yeah, we're actually good right there. I could probably be scooted over more to the left a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to save, and I'm going to just do a little test render. Okay, so the end of this video, we're just going to record, do a little test render, and then we should be good. So output, all this stuff should be good except for this. We want all frames, and not actually all of them. I only want to go to 150. I'll set that to 150. Our saving, we'll put this into a new folder called renders. And we'll call it test render. Name.number.extension. Everything should be good there. Nothing else is fancy. We don't need any settings turned up. And then we'll add this to the render queue. Yes. And then we'll render. Okay. So then when we come in next time, then we can look at it and see how just our test render looking. We may need to adjust our camera. We may need to adjust our lights. We may need to adjust everything. Okay. So that's where we're going to stop it here.